A major winter storm is coming to the United States over the course of the next 72 plus hours, bringing a crippling ice storm and very heavy snowfall rates that some areas haven't seen in over 5 years. So let's get right into it without further ado. Taking a look at this storm that will impact millions. Taking a look at it here as we headed towards Friday afternoon. Notice here we're focusing on two pieces of energy. One is this Baja low off the coast of California. Two is this really big dip in the jet stream, and that's causing a winter storm to break out across areas of the central plains and southern plains as moisture from that Baja low starts to get ejected northward. But look at what this does as we head in towards Friday night and into Saturday, as that Baja low kind of tries to kick some energy into the system. It kind of injects more moisture into it, and therefore by Saturday afternoon and evening you have a full-blown heavy snowstorm on your hands across Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, back into Illinois to Tennessee, Kentucky to southern Indiana, and areas of central Kentucky as well. In addition to that, we have a crippling ice storm that is going to be ongoing from areas of Texas back into Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and Tennessee, Georgia into South Carolina. That is going to be the most significant portion of the storm. But like I said before, even if you're in the snow zone, don't write this off. This is going to be very heavy snow accumulations all the way from the Ohio Valley back into the Mid-Atlantic, where totals could possibly approach the 1 foot mark, all right, or even exceed that. We're just going to have to watch out. And you can see the ice just continuing to break out across areas of the Mid-Atlantic and southern plains, all right? And then as we take this into Sunday, I mean, look at this. Heavy snow is starting to break out now across the lower Great Lakes back into the Mid-Atlantic. This is where we could see 6+ accumulations, all right, or 6+ inches of accumulation. In addition to that, our crippling ice storm is still going on across this area. I think there are going to be widespread power outages where the ice storm is, all right, and possibly where the heavy snow is as well, all right. We're not expecting a big blizzard event out of this, but this is definitely going to be a big storm in terms of ice totals in addition to snow totals. And there are still some questions remaining on how far north or south this thing could track, so we're going to take a look at a couple more weather models, all right? We'll take a look now at the Canadian model. As we take this in towards late Friday morning, all models agreeing, or at least the European and Canadian are agreeing that snow breaks out from northern Texas back into Nebraska, all right? This looks very light, but it's probably going to accumulate pretty quickly due to the very cold temperatures, which increases that liquid to snow ratio, or snow to liquid ratio. In addition to that, we have freezing rain and sleet breaking out across this general area, but the real show doesn't start until Saturday, whenever the ice storm starts to get underway across areas of, like I said before, the deep south, where areas like Dallas, Texas, back into northern Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana, back up into Jackson, Mississippi, Huntsville, Alabama, northern Alabama, back into northern Georgia, and perhaps some freezing rain starting to mix in South Carolina. We also have the heavy snow portion of this thing that's going to break out in this area. The interesting thing about this is that the Baja low isn't fully ejected yet, and it kind of pushes this thing north as we headed towards Sunday, all right? This is one thing the Euro has been showing too. Like I said before, snow breaking out in this area, but this one has heavy snow breaking out as far west as Illinois. So that's something to monitor. This area would definitely be at risk for some major snow totals, which would definitely cause widespread travel issues, widespread flight delays, etc., etc. You got the whole thing. It could be historic, especially for this general area right into here. In addition to that, the ice storm is still going to be going on for a lot of areas, including the deep south, Tennessee Valley back into the Mid-Atlantic, where, like I said before, upwards of 1 inch of ice is definitely possible, which is very crippling. And then as we headed towards Monday, some models do suggest the snow continues across this area, which would pile up snow even more. And taking a look lastly at the GFS before we'll jump into potential ice and snow accumulations, let's take a peek at it here. As we head in towards Friday, again, all three major models agreeing that this turns into a pretty decent ice and snowstorm across the southern plains back into the central plains. Ice breaking out across, Dallas, Texas, that general area. Baja Low starts to inject into the system as we headed towards Saturday. Heavy snow starts to break out from eastern New Mexico all the way toward North Carolina. This is going to be a really big collage of snow. So if you are traveling, I would recommend rescheduling or possibly finding somewhere else to go, because this winter storm is not going to cut it for travel, especially when it comes to flights. In addition to that, road travel as well. But flights definitely could be canceled. Central Texas all the way across to the Carolinas could have some significant ice and sleet accumulations. The difference from this model to the other models is that this heavy snow area does not go nearly as far north. And this is why, like I said before, there is still at least some uncertainty as to how far north or south this thing tracks. The GFS, I will say, has been outlying the past couple of runs, but it has started a northern shift, so we will need to watch this area closely. But, right now, it does just generally show this area for the highest concentration of heavy snow. Either way, it's going to be a crippling ice storm down here, very heavy snowfall rates in this area. And like I said before, all models agree this can continue into Monday. With that being said, let's jump into our ice accumulations across the south with the European model, all right? This is going to be absolutely crippling, all right, and very ridiculous, all right? As we head into Friday afternoon, notice as the ice starts to pile up, they're starting to get some grazings back in towards the central and southern plains. But as we head in towards late Friday and into Saturday, we start to pile up the ice and freezing rain on surfaces. This is the area to start the ice storm, and it becomes more widespread as we head into Saturday and even Sunday as well. Look at this, guys. This model showing anywhere from 1 to 2.5 to 3 inches of ice in this area. And even surrounding that, it is going to be a very crippling ice storm, to say the least. All right, there will likely be impassable travel in this entire area. So like I said before, if you are having plans to travel down here, just forget about it. All right, it is going to be just a mess. And if we do get an ice storm this ridiculous, this would break records. All right, this would break records for the biggest ice storm ever. All right, so please keep an eye out if you live down there. I can't stress this enough. The GFS has a little bit less ice accumulations and a lot further south. All right, this is why I said it's a bit of an outlier at this point, but we'll have to wait and see because it has started to cave toward the European and Canadian. Notice here it still has that plethora of at least a grazing of ice here and some significant accumulations all the way through the Carolinas back into the southern plains. Let's take a peek at what the Canadian thinks. All right, notice here how it also thinks there's some very crippling ice in this area. All right, an ice storm to say the least. A very, very life-threatening and historic ice storm to say the least in this area. All right, if you put it to where the Euro puts it though, this whole area would have significant problems, possibly as long as weeks and maybe even months, if this is exactly the outcome. And let's take a peek at what everyone's been waiting for. All right, the snowfall totals. All right, as we take this in towards Wednesday, there's that Clipper system. But as we headed towards Friday, here we go. Here come the snowfall accumulations as we headed towards this time frame. Already talking about 5 to 6 inches across this area, possibly 3+ inches down there as far south as Oklahoma. And as we head in towards Saturday afternoon, there goes the snow outbreak as we headed towards this time frame. In this entire area, expecting up to at least 6 inches of snow. That's winter storm warning criteria. And as we take it in towards Sunday, if this model were correct, all of these areas would be at winter storm criteria. So this would definitely be a crippling heavy snowstorm as well. I wouldn't say crippling because, not freezing rain, but this would definitely cause some major travel concerns. Flights would probably be grounded across this entire area. So again, we'll need to watch the track of this system very closely. And taking a look here at the Canadian model, it pretty much has the same thing as the Euro here, all right, with a swath of at least 6+ inches of snow. The hot spot really is in this area, though, and I think this is the most furthest north model there is. It is not an outlier by any means, all right? Now, you guys might be saying, well, he lives in Ohio. He's just saying that because he's a northern weenie. I'm not just saying that because I'm a northern weenie, all right? The models have been literally trending north through the day today, and if the Euro is showing this and the Canadian is showing this, which the Canadian has actually done pretty well this season, it's time to start talking about it, all right? And even as you head in towards Monday afternoon, you could get up towards foot snow totals here, maybe even higher across this general area, all right? So this is going to be a significant storm for everywhere in that general area. And now the Buster, the GFS, all right? I think, again, this is too far south. All right, I think that this is overestimating this entire area. Now, I don't think you're going to get 32 inches in North Carolina. Could you guys get a foot? You could. Could you guys get 15 inches? Absolutely, and that's going to be absolutely historic. But you're not going to be getting 24 to 32 inches of snow. This is the corridor of the heaviest snow the GFS has. All right, again, it has been trending north. All right, and the run-to-run consistency has been very vague when it came to the GFS. All right, the GFS has been doing actually rather poorly on these winter weather systems this season, and this is the first real big one we've had to deal with. Yeah, I don't think the GFS has a really good handle. What about the Euro AI? All right, the Euro AI ensemble guidance. All right, let's take a peek at that. As we head in towards this time frame, note this is 10-to-1 ratio. Notice here how the big plethora of snow is down here and up into this general area. It has been trending north, all right? So these areas start looking out, all right? This entire area, start looking out, all right? The potential winter storm criteria totals do exist. And you notice as we fast forward this further on, I mean, like I said before, that's not for that winter storm, but it's going to get very snowy in that area. And taking a look here, at your, 7-day snow totals as we head in towards this time frame. Like I said before, main area of interest will be in this general area when it comes to the ensemble guidance, but this is generally starting to scoot further to the north. So, in this general area where I'm lining out, I would start paying attention because the models overall are starting to have a good handle on the potential. Taking a look here at the European AI operational, what do those show? All right, as we head in towards this time frame, it does not have Kuchera. That's a bummer. But here's your 10-to-1 ratio snow. It is going to be a lot more than this model shows. All right, so even though, it shows 4 inches of snow in this area, that's probably going to equate to 8 to 9 inches in Kuchera, all right, because you're going to have 20-to-1 ratio snow the further north you get, all right? Still, even though the big area is going to be in this area where I think there's going to be some foot snow totals. In addition to that, like I said before, your ice down here, all right? And your ice actually is going to be actually not a product on this model run. I just realized that. Sorry for the little stop there. But yeah, the unfortunate thing is that the Euro AI does not support freezing rain totals. However, I would not be shocked if there's crippling totals in this area, in addition to heavy snow totals in this area. Yes, scooting further north into that time frame. And lastly, taking a peek here at the overall setup. that will put this storm together, all right, and will determine how far north or south this tracks as we take this in towards Thursday into Friday. We're likely going to be tracking that Baja low off the coast of California. This is around 5 to 6 Z on Friday morning, which is probably about 12 to 1 a.m. Eastern. Notice here it's starting to throw moisture into the south central plains. We still don't have that connection, though, so there's not going to be anything crazy. Maybe some rain showers, maybe a couple snow showers, if that, into Oklahoma. But then as we head in towards the later part of the morning on Friday and into the afternoon, this is when things start to get interesting because we start to get a longer fetch of moisture, and then you have this Arctic jet stream starting to interact with this. This is going to start breaking out ice and snow across this entire area, and you guys are going to start noticing it very well, especially as we head in towards Saturday, though. This is when the real impacts start. All right, if the Baja low were to do this, this would start really flinging in moisture and creating the potential for this crippling ice storm in this area and the potential of a heavy snowstorm in this area, all right, because that's where, the exit region of that jet is. So watch out if you live in those two zones, and even more so as we head in towards Sunday. Notice here how that Baja low just continues to move in. Moisture still screaming along this boundary. Like I said before, would not be shocked if we still had freezing rain going on. Would not be shocked if we have maybe a more amplified northern portion of the snow portion here that brings some significant accumulations to this area. That's definitely a possibility. Another possibility is as we head in towards Friday, that this could possibly stay out to sea a little bit longer and therefore possibly, less amplify the storm system and keep this a southern slider. All right, that's the least possible scenario right now when it comes to probabilities. But like I said before, all the models are starting to converge. And except for the GFS, which is lonesome for the southern slider storm, I think this has a pretty good handle on what could happen, all right? I think this is realistic, where we get moisture to start flinging northward and we get that extra punch of energy to start moving in. Heavy snow breaking out in this area, ice breaking out in this area. You got it all. And as we take this in towards, Sunday, like I said before, you could still have, ice breaking out in this area. You could have heavy snow breaking out in this area. It is just going to be a very, very, very historic storm system, and it is going to be causing a million problems as we head in towards this upcoming weekend. All right, folks, I'm Severe Storm Filmer. Have a good rest of your night. Please stay safe in the storm. If you live anywhere, like I said before in this video, please pay attention. I'm talking about, again, the southern central plains, southeast, back in the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, and northeast for the potential of snow and ice as you head further south. I'm Severe Storm Filmer. Have a great rest of your night and stay safe out there.